Okay, so now I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker today, although he clearly doesn't need any introduction here. So Bryan Jessup is going to talk to us today about the path forward. And like myself, Bryan has his roots in somewhat of the Baptist theology, and so I always get excited when Bryan's going to preach, because it's going to be preaching.
Thank you, Patricia Fay. And, I thank you, Thomas, great story. And thank you, Brent. I love the Green Day song, and I love that opening line. Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. As we choose our way forward, the great philosopher Yogi Berra has some good advice for us. He says, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Well, in our nation, and in our world, and in our personal lives, we come again and again to forks stuck in the road, and we have to take it. But choosing which way to take it is always a challenge. On a personal level, life keeps challenging us. Many of us are dealing with health issues, with aging issues, with relationship issues, with raising kids, with work, with financial challenges, and that's just the beginning of the list. So how do we choose? On a national level, it's quite a time, isn't it? We're dealing with divisiveness, with the fragility of our democracy, with the rise of fear and anger that separates us, with gun violence, with anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, with racism, with suppression of women's rights, with economic injustice, with homelessness, and more and more and more. And how do we choose? On a global level, we're dealing with climate change, devastating wars all around the planet, mass slaughter, famine, drought, mass migration, and more and more. So how do we choose? We Unitarian Universalists generally try to choose our way using mind and heart together. We have a saint, Pete Seeger. I love his song about mind and heart together. He said, had I a golden thread and a needle so fine, I would weave a magic strand of rainbow design. And in it, I'd weave the bravery of women giving birth. And in it, I'd weave the innocence of the children of the earth. The children of the earth. And I'd show all my brothers and sisters about my rainbow design. And together, we would bind up this sorry world with hand and heart and mind. Hand and heart and mind. The English word religion is about binding. Binding up the sorry world. The word religion comes from the Latin word ligare, which is the root of the word ligament. It's what holds us together when everything seems to be falling apart. Re ligare, re-ligament. Well, religion, there's a whole other topic, isn't it? Huh? It's often so scattered it doesn't offer much help. Oh, for sure, there are myriad examples of religions that claim to have an easy answer. And not just white Christian fundamentalism either, although that's pretty impressive. There's a lot of money also being made by people selling quick, easy fixes. And the whole effort of religion has been so compromised. All that is sacred has been profaned. So many people have given up on religion altogether. And who can blame them? But religion or no religion, the puzzle still remains. We have to deal with all the shadow and light of our lives, and not just individually, but the shadow and light of our lives as human beings on the planet. We have to deal with chaos all around us and the chaos within us. We have to deal with the reality, and this is hard news for us Unitarian Universalists. We have to deal with the reality that reason alone is not enough. It can't control our behavior. Albert Einstein uses the word science instead of reason, but it's kind of the same, or at least in my heart it is. He says, religion without science is blind. But science without religion is lame. You can't go anywhere. So here we are in a complex world, and there are no magic cures. But if we can bind mind and heart together, there is a way ahead. There are behaviors that can center us in love and help us make choices that heal us and help heal the world. I can personally tell you, and I know that you have seen in your own lives, there are many ways to offer this healing. There are many ways to care, many ways to achieve moments of the rebinding for which our hearts and minds yearn. I say moments because it's all energy, isn't it? It's all flowing all the time, and there are moments when we can work with that energy. Doesn't last forever, though. There's no such thing as happily ever after. No happily ever after. But there can be a sequence of moments and a direction in our lives as we create these moments where love is shared and needs are met. Sunday sandwiches are given out. And hearts are healed. I take faith in the presence of these moments, and these moments are what we create here to empower us, to go out into the world, to go out from here into the chaos. Oh, here comes Kate Wolf, forgive me. Here we are at last again, reaching out across the room. Silently, the light shines in, and the sailors reach the harbor. Look at all us sailing in, decks awash, but still afloat. And now the wind comes up to rock us on the water. Here we are, riding out the storm, like a ship, safe at anchor, safe, waiting for the long voyage. Around the Cape of Hope we'll take her. In the calm before the storm, there were sunny days and smoother waters. And when the wind came up, well, we set our sails and we caught her. Just look into my eyes. Let me see where you've been sailing. Because like you, I felt the storm. And I've heard those wild waves wailing, riding out the storm like a ship, safe at anchor, safe, and waiting out the long voyage. Around the Cape of Hope will take her. So while we're taking that voyage, while we're traveling around the Cape of Hope, we encounter people. I've known so many people who work in a sustained way to create moment after moment of caring and healing. The Jews call that healing tikkun olam, the repair of the world. And I've known so many Jews and so many Muslims and Sikhs and Buddhists and Christians and pagans and atheists and Unitarian Universalists who in their own way have practiced tikkun olam. Let me do just a quick advertisement for Unitarian Universalism. 9/11 happened. And I was in Fresno. And I got a call from a member of the board who said, "Bryan, are you paying attention to the news?" And I said, "No, I just got up." And she said, "Well, pay attention to the news." And then I got a call from the priest at the Armenian Orthodox Church. He said, "Bryan Jessup, we have to do something." So we were part of the Interfaith Alliance, and that's in Fresno. That's where I encountered so many Muslims and Sikhs and Jews and Buddhists and Christians. So he said, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "Well, let's ring up the members of the Interfaith Alliance." And he said, "I've got a church, I've got an organist." He said, "How are we going to pull it together?" And I said, "I have a hymn book." Seriously. Seriously. What we have here is world-saving scriptures. It's not the only way. Obviously, it's not the only way. But if you get a group of people together, you can sing out of our deep values. People from various faiths can sing. I've known so many Unitarian Universalists who practice tikkun olam. And we have our own evolving religious way. For over 200 years in this country, we have tried to walk the pathway of faith, hope, love, and justice using, you've heard this before, freedom, reason, and tolerance as our guides. Have you heard that? Freedom, reason, and tolerance? It's a kind of like the bell of Unitarian Universalism. Freedom, reason, tolerance. Our way is certainly not the only way, but as I have had to choose my way forward, Unitarian Universalism has been so helpful for me. And that's part of our technique too. Even as we live with one another in beloved community, and even as our decisions sit in community with other people, the question is, yeah, but what's going to work for me right now? What's going to work? What's going to calm the chaos in my heart? As I work to heal my own spirit, as I work to keep growing in my ability to embody love and justice and make good decisions while hang gliding. As I do that, moment after moment, I have to ask, what works for me? Sometimes bidding hasty retreat really is a good idea, isn't it? Not always. Sometimes you have to stand where you are, but other times, what's going to work for me right now? Many religions offer a standard approach that purportedly should work for everyone. And if it doesn't, it's your fault. You sin. There's just one way, some religions say, And we happen to have it. And it's right here in our fists. We got it. Here it is. That way stopped working for me when I was in high school. When I was in high school, Vietnam War going on. And E. Cummings, son of a Unitarian minister, spoke to me and said, I sing of all that's glad and big, whose warmest heart recoiled at war, a conscientious objector. And that set me off in a direction. I came from a family of warriors. My dad, a P-51 pilot, 61 missions. My Uncle Craig, my mentor in ministry. A Marine frogman swimming into islands in the Pacific. Coming home, kneeling by my grandmother's bed and said, not grandma, it was mom for him. So awful, it was so awful, it was so awful. My dad, my uncle, combat veterans, their warmest hearts recoiled at war. They said, don't do it. So I did it. How do you make a choice? I came to a fork in the road. Unitarian Universalists helped me. And my Baptist relatives helped me too. Because their warmest hearts recoiled at war. So, what works right now? Our decisions are inextricably interrelated with other people's decisions. But we still have to respond to the complexity ourselves. One of the things I love about our way is that we own our responsibility to choose our way forward, and we embrace our ability to choose. We own our responsibility, and we embrace our ability. We are heretics. Heretics, oh yes. The word heretic in English means someone who does not conform to the standard doctrine. But it comes from the Greek word heresis, which means able to choose. Able to choose. Our religious way affirms that we are able to choose, and it encourages us to choose. What's going to warm and heal our hearts? What's going to keep us ethical? What's going to keep our integrity intact? What's going to keep us in right relationship with other people, with the planet, with the mystery of life? What's going to keep our hearts open and responsive? The freedom and the responsibility that is offered to us in our religious way is exhilarating and exhausting. Demands a lot of work, a lot of centering, a lot of careful thought, a lot of careful, prayerful action. Prayerful action. Holy Earth Home, Mother of all, blessed art thou among planets, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, the whole interconnected web of life. Holy Earth, O Mother of all, pray for us, love learners, now and in the hour of our death. Amen. Amen. When we come to a fork in the road, we do not all choose the same exact path. We often find what works for us isn't exactly the same as what works for others. Some of us, we found out yesterday, choose jazz. Some of us choose classical. Some of us, oh my, choose country western. Some of us choose hip hop. And for us truly confused, some of us choose an eclectic mix. When we come together to share on Sunday morning, not every musical piece is going to resonate with us, and certainly not every spoken piece. And as we work to be more inclusive as a way of faith, as we work to widen our welcome, so we welcome in people from various races and cultures and gender orientations, different from our historical Yankee norm, as we open ourselves up, we're very likely to hear things that are new for us, that don't immediately resonate. We Unitarian Universalists hope to respond to the diversity among us by focusing not on our particular cultural approaches, but focusing on the values at the center of our hearts. Love and justice, equity and pluralism, inclusion and interdependence. But even in the presence of those deep values, our paths forward are not exactly the same. So the question becomes, can we be ourselves in this community and still make room for one another? As we have the freedom and responsibility to discover what works for us. We have reason as a great tool to keep us from driving over the edge of the cliff, because religion without science is blind. And we have a reminder to practice tolerance for our own unique humanness and for the unique humanness of all the people around us. Over the years, there's been a lot of talk in UU circles about the limitations of the word tolerance. I think that's a great conversation to have. I find our third principle very helpful in this regard. It calls us not to just put up with ourselves and one another, but to generously accept ourselves and one another and encourage ourselves and one another in our unique paths to spiritual growth. One of the many reasons I like Unitarian Universalism is that the open-hearted acceptance to which it calls us is really what is needed all around the planet, isn't it? Dave, I'm looking at you. You've been all around the planet. You've opened yourself up to different perspectives. Speaking of perspective, you've opened. And you've heard the heart underneath, haven't you? You've connected. Poet farmer Wendell Berry says, after having met Russian farmers, he said, I've got a lot more in common with the Russian farmers than I do with folks in my own country living urban lives in the city. We're just human beings. Can we see that? Can we open ourselves? That call to accept one another stands in stark contrast to the divisiveness that is so often encouraged among us now. In so many places around the world and in our own country, people are encouraged to see others who are slightly different from them, slightly different, as less than human. How different can Palestinians and Israelis be? They've lived on the same land together for 4,000 years. They're cousins, for God's sake, going back to Abraham. Russians and Ukrainians, how different can they be? They've lived together for thousands of years. Their languages are not totally interchangeable, but they're very similar. Families all over together. How different can they be? But when we get into the war mode, we dehumanize folks who are slightly different from us. And that dehumanization is not just lethal for other people, it's lethal for our own souls. So we UUs gather around the country, and we gather here in McMinnville on Sunday mornings, and we gather during the week in small groups to practice a different way Instead of dehumanization, we respond to a call to open ourselves to the humanness of ourselves, to accept that, and to find the various ways that bind us together as one human family. When we come to that fork stuck in the road, our UU religious way offers us a great deal of freedom, reason as our guide, and reminds us not to just put up with, but to graciously accept our mutual humanness. So how do I choose my path forward? Well, I engage my mind. I try to pay attention to what is happening all around me. I listen to the news. I study particular details of decisions that I have to make. I'll tell you here. I moved from the Baptist to Unitarian Universalist because I wanted lights on in the attic. I'm a heart guy, if you hadn't known that. I'm a heart guy. But excuse me, I want lights on in the attic. If I'm driving in the dark, I want headlights. Give me a little reason too, please. So I study, I use my mind, and I connect with my heart, and I center my spirit in different ways. My dog Arlo and I take spiritual walks in nature when? Every day. I read the Bhagavad Gita, among other things. I play hymns on my trumpet. I am a hymn junkie. And I come to this fellowship almost every Sunday. My way is not exactly like your way. But I love you people. I love your company. You lift my spirit. Though we may be choosing slightly different paths, our values are the same. I love your company because I see the light of your heart come shining through. And that light brings me hope and joy. Furthermore, I know you see me. It's so important that each of us are seen. I know you see me. And together we keep choosing one another and choosing our way forward because we do not believe the story is all over yet. We ain't done here, folks. We believe there's a lot of life in front of us. And in that life, there's going to be more love and more peace and more joy as we dedicate ourselves to making it so. So I will close with the word of encouragement from the ancient Persian poet Jalaluddin Rumi. Have faith, my friends. Be at peace. That which you are seeking is seeking you. That which you are seeking is seeking you. Oh, may it find us. May we find it. May we find one another. Amen.
Amen. Amen. So as we let those words settle, we're going to do a 3-minute meditation.